And my point back was, look, the most important thing I feel like right now for my organization is two things. It's number one, we have to be very focused on growth, and then we have to be focused on scalable systems. Those are the only two things I care about right now. I mean, I get that there's another 50 things that I could go do, and I get that there's, more growth that could be had, and I could accelerate things and things like that. But how do you, as a business leader, think about when is the right time to scale? Because at least for me, this has stuck with me now for the last 24 hours because I had this conversation very early yesterday, and I sort of wonder, you know, what do you think in terms of the right time to start thinking about pivoting or scaling an organization?
So, I mean, a little bit of a, theoretical response to it before I bring it to, what I've seen. So in typical sense, any right time to scale is probably, telling yourself that, you have earned the right to, it's like scaling too early, you're amplifying chaos, scaling too late, you're missing the window. So for me, when your systems run smoother than your story, when your customers are pulling, not just when you're pushing, and when your execution is predictable, under pressure, these are three, dynamics that I generally put out on a whiteboard and say, hey, this is not something that is being force fit, at any level. So that's where we actually look at it and say, scale becomes a multiplier and not a mess. So,
Right.
that's one big way, that I have, taken some of these things back and looked at it. And I've said that one big challenge, with new industry, and in fact, if I see my, career, how I have actually transitioned, it was about changing the narrative around what the outsider could achieve in them. In fact, one of the things that have actually worked with me is typically a banker coming and doing clean tech and then going into pharmaceuticals and then expanding off, from there and trying to build something which actually scaled so quickly in the last, 6 years. And that, to me is where, it's a very, intriguing, aspect. But one thing that I will personally, think that, like as a founder yourself, and also, to the others who are, uh, looping in, I'd say it's more like also look at a deeper calling. In fact, one of the things that I'd often be very intrigued looking at some of these pharmaceutical products as I was growing up. So when I look back at it, if I were to attribute 50% of my career to banking, I would actually now already be attributing 50% of my career to pharmaceuticals. So so that's typically how I have seen these things scale. Um, and one other aspect, a little bit of a softer aspect here, it has like, how is it that you earn the trust,
Mm.
prove the credibility, and show up consistently until the results actually start talking to themselves? But that's a big part of, how you bring scaling as part of it, because sometimes a lot of people go in, put so many systems, around the place that actually you can't even move your foot, from point A to point B. And I said that is like shooting yourself with a bazooka and saying, you know what, I have the entire thing, and frankly, I look back at it and I say, okay, depends on who's asking. So that's a question that we'll have to go back to look at and ask. So yeah. I don't know if I've been able to bring you close to that kind of thought that has been there in your head.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot again in that answer, but I also think that there's a lot that that is very helpful for the frame of mind that I have as well. That
Mhm.
I think having the focus that we have is critically important for the organization
Mhm.
right now. If you were to talk to me
Right.
6 months from now and I'm still at the same point, I think I think that would be the time to kind of question, hey, are you just hanging out here because it's comfortable? Or are you, is this, not really, because you're not challenging yourself enough. But
Mhm.
back to your point as well, in terms of putting in too many systems or having things be too restrictive. The one thing I used to tell people all the time with regards to implementing standard work was, if you could imagine in American baseball, if you can imagine a batter in a batter's box, um, the
Mhm.
rules don't control how the batter stands in the box. It doesn't control how the batter swings the bat. It doesn't control any of that stuff. You have to let the batter
Right.
swing and take their own position. And it's important as well, to understand that whatever, sort of operational standards that you have, they can't be so restrictive or so controlling that it takes the human element out of it. We have to be able to essentially move and be human as well. So, you've transitioned from successful corporate career to founding, is it Sujana Energy, and then later
Mhm.
ventured into pharmaceuticals. What are what drove the career shifts, and what were some of the key challenges that you faced?
Each shift came from a place of two interesting emotions. One is discomfort, and the other is curiosity. So I left the corporate career not because I had a perfect plan, but because I knew I had more to build. Clean tech was, it was a bet on the future of sustainable energy. One of the things when I look back, I'd say that probably I did it a little too early in the day. And now the way people understand all this and the need for some of these things, I kept thinking that maybe I should have done it like a decade later. But hey, I exited, I made money, why not? And then and as I was earlier saying, pharma was always a deeper calling because as I was a young adult, I would obviously be looking at different forms of medicines, packaging, and would keenly be reading all the labels, especially. Would then go online. And these were the days when there was not much of Google out there. And then read about the drug, its composition, the manufacturer, what does it do, and what's the indications. For a engineer to be actually reading this, was a little bit of a surprise. A lot of people thought that I'd be the savvy computer science engineer who would look at systems a little differently. Uh, but one big challenge that I saw wasn't just learning new industries. It was just trying to how to earn that trust. How to actually see how an outsider can come into the business and actually change the way existing people in the industry are looking at it. So today I use these lessons to solve complex, especially pharmaceutical challenges, uh, by using systems thinking and not just by putting them in silos. So, I think I have seen that real innovation often shows up, at the intersections, more so when you connect ideas across industries. So that's been a big part of, what has worked for me personally.
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, it's so important, but also, uh, it's funny. The interesting part of this conversation, I feel like, as well, is that I feel like so many of us have broad interests. Um, when I sort of look at, a few of these things, right, whether it's on the clean tech side or even on the pharmaceutical side, um, it's almost like you're plotting a path, um, that will, as you look back, be able to afford you the ability to say, I made an impact on the world, and here is
Mhm.
kind of what I hope to leave behind, right? So, um, anyway, it's more, speaking much more theoretical now, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm just, thinking that, as you look back at all of the impact that you have, as you move forward, it feels to me like, you'll be able to say that you touched a lot of areas, but they also,
Mhm.
would have an impression on mankind as well. So
Hoping to do that.
can you describe your role as a managing director at HRV Global Life Sciences, and then also as CEO of New Horizon Global Pharma?
Sure. So, as most founders, would do, roles been around driving growth, building global partnerships, and keeping us ahead of the curve. We went back, changed or challenged the way pharma companies were looking at models, we built a virtual asset light pharma model.